I thought widowhood would mean peace. Then one night, through the hiss of a baby monitor, her voice cut sharp as glass. My daughter-in-law laughed. "Daniel's such a fool. He'd sign anything if I asked. The house is practically mine already. The old woman won't even know what hit her." My chest turned to ice. The laundry slid from my hands. In that instant, I saw it clearly, my son blind with love, me dismissed as useless, and my home marked for theft. They thought I was too old to fight. They were wrong. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. The first betrayal came through a baby monitor. I was upstairs. The device sat on my nightstand. White plastic. Frank bought it years ago when Daniel was born. I heard her voice clearly. My daughter-in-law, Lila, speaking to someone on the phone downstairs. The words cut through the static. He'd sign anything if I asked him. Her tone was light, almost cheerful. The house is practically mine already. I stopped folding laundry. The old woman won't even know what hit her. The sheets slipped from my hands. I sat down on the bed. The mattress creaked. Frank's side still felt empty after 3 years. My heart didn't race. It slowed instead, turned cold and steady. I picked up the monitor, turned the volume down, placed it carefully in the drawer. Then I walked to the window. Outside, the ocean stretched gray and endless. Gulls circled above the rocks. The house stood on the cliff edge. Weather-worn shingles, cracked paint on the shutters. This house was mine, every single nail and board. 3 weeks earlier, Lila had arrived. Daniel brought her home on a Saturday. Rain drummed against the windows. He carried her luggage up the front steps. 4 matching bags, cream-colored leather, expensive. She smiled when I opened the door. "Margaret," she said warmly, "I've heard so much about you." Her hand was soft when we shook. Mine was rough from gardening. Daniel looked tired. He always looked tired. The ER drained him. 12-hour shifts. Too many emergencies. Not enough sleep. "Mom, I hope it's okay," he said quietly. "Just until we find our own place." I nodded. Of course it was okay. He was my son. This was his home too. But Lila's eyes moved past me, scanning the hallway, the worn carpet, the faded wallpaper with tiny blue flowers. I saw her expression shift. Just for a second. Disappointment. Within days, things began to change. The curtains came down first. Cream linen I'd sewn myself. They'd hung there for 20 years. Lila replaced them with white blinds. Stark. Clinical. "Let in more light," she explained brightly. But the light felt colder now. Next was Frank's armchair. Forest green corduroy. His reading spot by the fireplace. I came home from the grocery store one afternoon. The chair was gone. It was falling apart, Lila said. She stood in the kitchen, wiping down counters that were already clean. "I donated it. You don't mind, do you?" My throat tightened. I minded. But Daniel stood beside her. He looked grateful. Someone was finally taking care of things. I said nothing. The photographs disappeared more slowly. Wedding pictures from the mantel. Frank and me on the porch steps. Daniel as a baby in Frank's arms. Lila boxed them up, said she was organizing. The walls grew bare. My life was being erased. Room by room, memory by memory. Daniel didn't notice. He worked long shifts, came home exhausted, fell asleep on the couch. Lila moved through the house like she owned it. Maybe she thought she did. The night I heard her voice through the monitor changed everything. I sat in my room. The deed to the house lay in my lap. I'd pulled it from Frank's safe. The paper was yellowed, edges worn, but the name was clear. Margaret Elizabeth Hayes. Not Daniel, not Lila, just me. Frank had made sure of that. After he died, the lawyer explained. The house was solely in my name. Protection. Security. I touched the ink, traced my husband's signature at the bottom. He'd always thought ahead. Now I had to do the same. I didn't confront Lila. Not that night. Not the next morning when she made breakfast. Humming in my kitchen, using my dishes. I watched her instead. She was careful, polite, always asking if I needed anything. But her eyes were calculating, measuring distances, counting assets. Daniel sat at the table, eating scrambled eggs. He smiled at his wife. He loved her. That hurt most of all. I began keeping notes. Small things at first. Dates, times, conversations. Frank's old journal sat empty in his desk drawer. I filled the pages now. October 12th, Lila asked about property taxes. Wanted to see the bills. October 15th, she mentioned a lawyer friend. Estate planning. October 18th, found her in the study, going through Frank's filing cabinet. The pattern emerged slowly. She was building something. A case. A story. I just didn't know what yet. Then I heard the second phone call. Late at night. I couldn't sleep. The house creaked in the wind. Her voice drifted up through the heating vents. Victor, I'm telling you, it's perfect. She spoke quietly, urgently. He trusts me completely. Victor. I didn't know any Victor. The mother's the only problem. Lila paused. But she's old. Forgetful. It won't take much. My hands gripped the bedsheets. We just need documentation. A doctor's note. Something official. She laughed softly. Then Daniel will agree. Guardianship. For her own safety. The floor felt unsteady beneath me. Guardianship meant control. Control meant losing everything. The house. My independence. My life. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I sat in the dark. Thinking. Planning. Dawn broke slowly over the ocean. Pink light spread across the water. The gulls returned, crying out above the waves. I was 72 years old. A widow. A retired librarian. But I wasn't finished yet. If Lila wanted a battle, she'd get one. This house was mine. Paid for with Frank's life insurance. Maintained with my own hands. Every mortgage payment. Every repair. Every choice. Mine. I went downstairs. Made coffee. The familiar routine steadied me. Lila appeared in her silk robe. Hair perfect even at sunrise. Good morning, Margaret, she said sweetly. I smiled back. Good morning, dear. She poured herself coffee. Added cream. 2 sugars. You seem tired, she observed. Are you sleeping well? Her concern sounded genuine, but I heard the assessment underneath. The note-taking. Just fine, I said evenly. She nodded, stirred her coffee. The spoon clinked against porcelain. 3 times, measured and precise. That's good, she said. We worry about you. We, as if she belonged here. As if this was already her home. I sipped my coffee, bitter and strong. Let her worry. I had work to do. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. This house wasn't just wood and stone. It was survival. Built from grief and mortgage payments. Every board told a story. Every nail cost something. Frank and I bought it 40 years ago. A fixer-upper on the cliff. The realtor called it a project. Frank called it potential. The ocean wind howled through cracks in the walls. Rain leaked into the bedroom. But the bones were solid. The foundation was strong. We spent weekends sanding floors, patching walls. Frank hammered shingles while I painted trim. Daniel crawled across newspaper-covered floors, learning to walk in rooms we built together. The house grew with us, room by room, year by year. When Frank got sick, the hospital bills came fast. Insurance covered some, not enough. I took a second job at the library, shelving books at night, coming home to find Frank asleep in his chair. Medical equipment crowding the living room. After he died, the mortgage remained. The property taxes, the endless repairs, I paid them alone. Sometimes choosing heat over groceries. Sometimes skipping meals so Daniel could have decent shoes. The bank threatened foreclosure twice. I showed them payment plans, proof of income, a widow's determination. They always gave me more time. The house stayed mine, because I fought for it. Every single month, every single bill. Now Lila walked these floors like they were already hers. Rearranging furniture, throwing out memories. She didn't know what this place cost. The sacrifice, the blood and exhaustion. She saw an asset, a number on a property website. I saw Frank's hands building the back deck. Daniel's height marks on the doorframe. 40 years of my life pressed into every corner. The morning after I heard the second phone call, I made breakfast. Scrambled eggs, toast, orange juice in Frank's old glasses. Daniel came down first, his scrubs wrinkled from yesterday. He'd worked a double shift. Dark circles shadowed his eyes. He kissed my cheek, poured coffee, said nothing. Exhaustion lived in his silence. Lila appeared 20 minutes later. Makeup perfect. Hair smooth. She wore yoga pants and a fitted top. Designer labels. Expensive fabrics. She sat across from Daniel. Touched his hand. Asked about his shift. He mentioned a car accident. 3 victims. 2 didn't make it. His voice was flat, hollow. Lila made sympathetic sounds, but her eyes drifted to her phone. Checking messages, scrolling through something. Daniel didn't notice. He never did anymore. I watched them. My son, his wife, the distance between them growing. He was too tired to see it. She was too busy planning. After breakfast, Lila announced she was redecorating the guest room, my sewing room, where I'd made curtains and quilts. Fixed Daniel's school clothes. The machine still sat in the corner. A Singer from 1973. Still worked perfectly. Lila said the room needed updating. Fresh paint, new furniture, a proper guest space. She already had color samples. Fabric swatches. Daniel nodded absently. Whatever made her happy. I said nothing, just cleared the plates. Washed them slowly, hot water scalding my hands. That afternoon, Lila started painting. Sage green. Trendy. Modern. The smell of fresh paint filled the house. She worked efficiently. Drop cloths spread perfectly. Edges taped with precision. She was good at this. Transforming spaces. Making things look beautiful. Surface level beautiful. While underneath, rot spread. I sat in the kitchen. Drinking tea. Listening to her hum. Some pop song. Light. Carefree. Daniel came home early. Rare. He looked surprised at the paint smell. Walked upstairs. I heard him talking to Lila. Her voice bright. Excited. Showing him the progress. He said it looked nice. She suggested other rooms next. The living room. Maybe his old bedroom. Fresh starts. New energy. He agreed quietly. Too tired to argue. Too grateful for her enthusiasm. That evening, I went through Frank's workshop. The garage he'd claimed as his space. Tools hung on pegboards, organized by size, by function. He'd been meticulous, orderly. The workbench still smelled like sawdust and motor oil. His bird-watching equipment filled one corner. Microphones he'd used for recording warblers, wrens, the delicate sounds of migration. I picked up a small recorder. Checked the battery compartment. Still worked. The microphones were professional grade. Sensitive. Designed to catch whispers in the wind. I took 3 microphones. The recorder. Extra batteries. Carried them inside. Waited until Daniel and Lila went to bed. Then I moved quietly, placing one microphone behind books in the study, another under the dining room sideboard, the third in the hallway vent. Small, hidden. Frank had taught me about angles, acoustics, where sound traveled best. I tested each one, checked the receiver. Clear audio. Perfect. Now I could hear everything. Every conversation, every phone call, every whispered plan. The next morning, Lila made calls. I was supposedly napping, but the recorder was running. She spoke to someone named Victor again. Her accomplice. Her partner. She told him about the redecorating. How Daniel was grateful. How she was building trust. Making herself indispensable. Victor told her to move faster. Get the doctor involved. Start documenting incidents. She agreed. Said she'd make it happen. Soon. The call ended. I played it back. Listened twice. Her voice was different with Victor. Harder. Colder. No pretense. Just ambition. That afternoon, she asked if I needed anything from the store. Her concern seemed genuine, but I knew better now. Every question was assessment. Every gesture was groundwork. I told her I was fine. She insisted, said she was going anyway. I gave her a short list. Milk, bread, butter. She left in her silver sedan. Expensive. Leased. Daniel was making payments. While she was gone, I checked her room. The guest room she'd taken over. Made into her private space. Her laptop sat on the desk. Closed. Probably password protected. But papers lay scattered. Receipts. Appointment cards. A business card for a real estate agent. I took photos with my phone. Daniel had bought me a smartphone last Christmas. Camera. Notes. Email. 72 wasn't too old to adapt. I photographed everything, then put it all back. Exactly as I'd found it. Lila returned with groceries, plus things I hadn't asked for. Organic vegetables, expensive cheese, artisan bread. She was spending Daniel's money. Filling my kitchen with her choices. I thanked her. Put things away. She made lunch, a salad with ingredients I couldn't pronounce. She ate delicately, checking her phone between bites. I asked if everything was all right. She said yes. Just busy, planning things. For the house. For our future. Our future. The word sat wrong. Tasted bitter. That night, Daniel worked late again. Lila and I ate dinner alone. She asked about my day. I said it was quiet. Restful. She mentioned maybe hiring a cleaning service. Help me keep up with housework. I told her I managed fine. She smiled, nodded, but I saw the note she made. Mental calculation. Evidence of decline. I was too old. Too tired. Needed help. Building her case. Brick by invisible brick. After dinner, I went upstairs. Sat on my bed. The deed lay in my nightstand drawer. I pulled it out. Read it again. Margaret Elizabeth Hayes. The lawyer had been clear. This house was mine alone. Frank had insisted. Said it was protection. in case something happened to him. Frank had known. Somehow, that love could be blind. That family could be fragile. He'd built me a fortress. Now I had to defend it. The window was open slightly. Ocean air drifted in, salt and kelp, the smell of home. Gulls cried in the darkness. Waves crashed against rocks below. This sound had lulled me to sleep for 40 years. Through grief, through poverty, through loneliness, the house had held me. Now I would hold it. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. 2 days after I planted the microphones, Lila made her move. Thursday morning, Daniel had left for a night shift at the hospital. The house settled into quiet. I was in the kitchen, washing breakfast dishes. Lila came downstairs with her phone pressed to her ear. She walked into the study, closed the door, but Frank's microphone caught every word. She spoke to someone named Dr. Rowan. Her voice was smooth, professional. She explained the situation carefully. Her elderly mother-in-law, living in the family home, recently showing signs of decline, confusion, memory lapses, nothing serious yet, but concerning. She wanted a professional assessment for the family's peace of mind. Of course, she understood his busy schedule, but this was somewhat urgent. They needed documentation, official records, in case decisions needed to be made. Dr. Rowan agreed to visit. Next Tuesday, late afternoon, Lila thanked him warmly, mentioned that Daniel worked such long hours. Someone needed to look after things. After family, the call ended. Silence filled the study. Then her footsteps crossed the floor. The door opened. She found me in the hallway. Smiled brightly. Asked if I wanted tea. I said yes. My voice steady, calm. She boiled water. Chose chamomile. Calming tea. Soothing. She brought it to me in the living room. Sat beside me. Touched my hand. She'd arranged something helpful, she said. A doctor friend. Just a wellness check. Making sure I was healthy. Happy. Nothing to worry about. I nodded. Sipped the tea. Thanked her for being thoughtful. Her smile widened. Relief crossed her face. This was easier than she'd expected. That afternoon, I went to the library. My old workplace. 23 years I'd worked there. Sarah ran it now. Young. Efficient. She smiled when I walked in. Asked how retirement treated me. I said well enough. She offered coffee. We sat in her office. I asked about the legal resources. Public records. Property law. She showed me the database. Printed articles for me. Guardianship laws in our state. Elder care regulations. What constituted competency? What didn't? I read everything. Twice. The law was clear. A guardian needed proof of incapacity. Medical documentation. Court approval. But the bar was lower than I'd thought. A doctor's testimony carried weight. Especially for seniors. Especially for women. The system assumed decline. Expected it. I made notes. Folded the papers. Put them in my purse. Sarah asked if everything was all right. I said yes. Just research. Staying informed. On the walk home, the wind picked up. October was ending. November approaching. The trees along Coastal Road had lost most of their leaves. Bare branches scraped against gray sky. The ocean churned dark and restless. Storm coming. I could smell it. Rain and electricity. The air pressure dropped. Made my joints ache. Made my mind sharper. That evening, Lila cooked dinner. Chicken. Roasted vegetables. She set the table carefully. Used the good plates. Frank's mother's china. She asked about my day. I mentioned the library, visiting Sarah, reading. She asked what I'd read. I said romance novels, light fiction. She smiled, nodded, seemed satisfied. The conversation drifted. She talked about the house. Upgrades she wanted, new appliances, modern fixtures, maybe knocking down a wall, opening up the space. I listened, said little, let her talk. After dinner, she made another call. I was supposedly watching television, but the recorder captured everything. Victor again. She told him about Dr. Rowan. The appointment set. Tuesday. She needed to create incidents before then. Evidence of confusion. Memory problems. Nothing too dramatic. Just enough. Victor said to be careful. Not to overplay it. These things had to look natural. Gradual. She agreed. Said she knew what she was doing. I turned off the television. Sat in the darkness. The plan crystallized. Lila needed evidence of decline. I would give it to her. But on my terms. Controlled. Documented. Every incident she manufactured would be recorded. Every lie preserved. She thought she was building a case. She was building a noose. Friday morning, I started performing. Left the stove on. Not dangerously. Just the burner. Low heat. Empty pot. Lila found it an hour later. Gasped. Rushed to turn it off. Asked if I'd forgotten. I blinked. Looked confused. Said I didn't remember. She patted my arm. Said it was okay. Happens to everyone. But I saw her eyes. Calculating. Recording. She took a photo. Subtle. Thought I didn't notice. Saturday, I misplaced my keys. Left them in the bathroom. Unusual place. Lila found them. Brought them to me. Gently. Carefully. Asked if I was feeling all right. I said yes. Just distracted. She suggested maybe I should rest more. Not push myself. I agreed. Went upstairs. But I didn't rest. I checked the recorder. Played back her phone call to Victor. She'd reported both incidents. The stove. The keys. Building her narrative. Sunday afternoon, Daniel came home. He'd worked 60 hours that week. His face was drawn. Exhausted. He collapsed on the couch. Lila brought him water. Rubbed his shoulders. Mentioned she was worried about me. Small things. Nothing major. But maybe he should know. He asked what things. She listed them. The stove. The keys. Her voice dripped concern. He looked at me. Asked if I was okay. I said yes. Just getting older. Forgetful sometimes. He nodded. Too tired to probe deeper. That night, I couldn't sleep. The wind rattled the windows. Rain began. Heavy drops against glass. The storm had arrived. I got up. Walked to the window. Lightning flashed over the ocean. Illuminated the waves. White foam crashing on rocks. The house creaked. Settling. Breathing. I thought about Tuesday. Dr. Rowan's visit. The performance I'd need to give. Not too obvious. Not too subtle. Just enough to satisfy him. Monday morning, the storm had passed. Everything smelled clean. Washed. New. I made coffee. Strong. Dark. Sat at the kitchen table. Made a list. What a confused person might do. How they'd act. Small mistakes. Hesitations. I'd watched my mother decline. Years ago. Before she passed. I knew the signs. The patterns. Could mimic them perfectly. Lila came downstairs. Chipper. Energetic. She reminded me about tomorrow. Dr. Rowan's visit. Just a checkup. Nothing stressful. She'd be there the whole time. I nodded. Said that was nice. She made breakfast. Scrambled eggs again. Toast. She was establishing routine. Caretaker role. Indispensable presence. I ate slowly. Dropped my fork once. Apologized. Picked it up. She rushed to get me a clean one. That afternoon, I visited the bank. Put important documents in a safety deposit box. The deed, birth certificate, social security card, marriage license, everything that proved who I was, what I owned. Then I went to see Richard Chen, Mrs. Chen's son, a lawyer. He'd helped with Frank's estate. I told him I needed protection. He asked from what. I said family complications. He understood. Filed papers. Said everything was secure. That evening, Daniel took Lila to dinner. Their 6-month anniversary. The house emptied. Silence settled thick. I sat in the living room. The recorder beside me played back the week's captures. Lila's voice. Victor's instructions. Dr. Rowan's agreement. Every word clear. Damning. Perfect. Tomorrow would be crucial. Dr. Rowan would observe. Test. Write his report. Lila expected documentation of decline. Recommendation for guardianship. Legal grounds for control. But she didn't know I'd be recording too. Every question. Every answer. Every coaching look. The trap was set. All pieces in place. The clock struck 9. Rain started again. Softer this time. Steady. I made tea. Sat by the window. Watched water stream down glass. Tomorrow, I'd play confused. Uncertain. A worried old woman. But tonight, I was clear. Sharp. Ready. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. Dr. Rowan arrived at 4:30 on Tuesday. A black sedan pulled into the driveway. Expensive. German. The engine purred then died. A man stepped out. Tall. Silver hair. Tailored suit under a wool coat. His leather bag gleamed in the afternoon light. Professional. Polished. Bought. Lila opened the door before he knocked. She'd been watching from the window. Her smile was bright. Grateful. She shook his hand. Thanked him for coming. Called him doctor with careful emphasis. He stepped inside. His eyes swept the hallway. Taking inventory. Making assessments. I sat in the living room. Hands folded. Waiting. Lila led him to me. Introduced us warmly. Dr. Rowan. A family friend. Here to make sure everything was all right. Just a checkup. I smiled. Nodded. Extended my hand. His grip was firm. Clinical. Cold despite the warmth. He sat across from me. Opened his leather bag. Pulled out a clipboard. Gold pen. Everything about him screamed expense. He started with easy questions. My name. The date. Where I lived. I answered slowly. Paused before saying the month. November. Or was it October still? I looked confused. Corrected myself. November. Yes. Definitely November. His pen scratched across paper. Lila sat beside him. Her face concerned. Supportive. But her eyes gleamed. The questions continued. What had I eaten for breakfast? I hesitated. Toast, I said. Maybe eggs. I couldn't quite remember. Had I taken my medications? I looked at Lila. She answered for me. Yes. She made sure. Every morning. Dr. Rowan wrote more. His expression stayed neutral. But his conclusions were forming. I could see them crystallizing behind his careful smile. He asked me to draw a clock. Handed me paper. A pencil. I held it awkwardly. Drew a circle. Uneven. Shaky. The numbers went around. But I placed the 3 where the 4 should be. Mixed up the 7 and 8. Small mistakes. Believable. Not too dramatic. He took the paper. Studied it. Nodded slowly. More notes. Then he asked about my daily routine. What did I do? How did I spend my time? I talked about reading, walking, watching television, but I stumbled over words. Repeated myself once. Said I'd already mentioned the walking. Had I? Yes. I thought so. Lila touched my hand, reassuring. It was okay. Take my time. The room felt smaller, warmer, suffocating. Dr. Rowan's questions shifted. Had I noticed any confusion lately? Forgotten things. I admitted maybe. Small things. Where I'd put my keys. Whether I'd turned off the stove. Nothing serious. Just age. Everyone forgot things. He agreed. Gently. Kindly. But his pen kept moving. Building a case. Brick by brick. After 30 minutes, he closed his clipboard. Told Lila he'd like to speak with her. Privately. In the kitchen perhaps. She agreed immediately. Asked if I'd be all right alone. I said yes. Of course. They left. Their footsteps faded. The kitchen door closed. But Frank's microphone waited, recording everything. Every damning word. I sat still. Hands folded. The small recorder in my cardigan pocket hummed. Barely audible. Capturing the room's silence. The clock ticked. Loud. Mechanical. Marking time. Outside, clouds darkened. Rain threatened. The light through the windows turned gray. Cold. In the kitchen, Lila's voice carried. Worried. Strained. She explained the incidents. The stove left on. Keys misplaced. Repeated questions. She was concerned. Frightened even. Margaret was declining. Slowly but surely. What should she do? How could she help? Dr. Rowan's response was measured. Professional. These things happened. Cognitive decline. Age-related. Not uncommon. The question was severity. Progression. Lila asked about options. Legal protections. Guardianship perhaps. Just in case. To keep Margaret safe. Dr. Rowan said that could be arranged. With proper documentation. Medical testimony. He could provide that. If needed. For the family's protection. His voice held no emotion. Just business. Transaction. Lila thanked him. Said Daniel would be so relieved. Someone professional. Someone trustworthy. Making the hard decisions. They returned to the living room. Both smiling. Dr. Rowan said goodbye. Patted my shoulder. Told me to take care. Rest. Listen to Lila. She knew what was best. I nodded. Thanked him. Watched him leave. The black sedan pulled away. Gravel crunched under tires. Then silence. Lila sat beside me. Squeezed my hand. Said everything would be all right. Dr. Rowan would help. Make sure I was safe. Cared for. I smiled weakly. Said I was tired. She helped me upstairs. Tucked me in. Like a child. Pulled the curtains. Dimmed the lights. Her kindness felt like poison. Sweet. Deadly. After she left, I pulled out the recorder. Played it back. Dr. Rowan's voice. Cold. Calculating. Agreeing to falsify records. Testify to decline. For money. Clearly for money. Lila's voice. Manipulative. Planning. Building her case. Every word was there. Preserved. Perfect. I got up. Went to the window. Pulled back the curtain. Rain had started. Heavy drops against glass. The ocean churned below. Gray. Endless. Angry. The house groaned. Wind pressed against walls. But the foundation held. Solid. Unshakable. Like me. That evening, Daniel came home. Earlier than usual. Lila met him at the door. Told him about Dr. Rowan's visit. Her voice carried upstairs. Worried. Gentle. The doctor had concerns. Margaret was declining. Memory issues. Confusion. Nothing urgent yet. But they needed to watch. Be prepared. Daniel's footsteps climbed the stairs. Slow, heavy. He knocked on my door. Softly. I told him to come in. He sat on the bed. His face was exhausted, lined with worry. Asked how I was feeling. I said tired. A bit confused lately. Nothing serious. He took my hand. Said Lila had told him. About the doctor. The concerns. I nodded. Said maybe it was just age. These things happened. He agreed. But his eyes were scared. We sat in silence. The rain drummed outside. Finally, he asked if I needed anything. I said no. Just rest. He kissed my forehead. Left quietly. His footsteps faded down the hall. The door clicked shut. Darkness filled the room. But my mind was bright. Clear. Sharp as broken glass. Downstairs, Lila made dinner. The smell of garlic drifted up. Onions. Something Italian. She was celebrating. Quietly. Privately. The first major step completed. Dr. Rowan's assessment. His agreement to testify. The path to guardianship opening. She hummed while cooking. That same pop song. Light. Carefree. I lay in bed. Thinking. Planning. Dr. Rowan had given me a gift. Evidence of conspiracy. Medical fraud. His willingness to lie. For money. For Lila. The recording was clear. Undeniable. But I needed the final piece. Proof of payment. The envelope. The transaction. That would come. Soon. I just had to wait. Watch. Let them think they'd won. While I built my fortress. Stone by stone. Recording by recording. The truth gathering strength. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. 3 days after Dr. Rowan's visit, the envelope arrived. Friday morning. The doorbell rang at 10. A courier. Young man in a brown uniform. Holding a padded manila package. Lila signed for it. Closed the door. I watched from the kitchen. She turned the package over. Checked the return address. Her face brightened. She took it upstairs. To her room. The door locked behind her. I waited 10 minutes. Then climbed the stairs. Stood outside her door. Listened. Paper rustling. A zipper opening. Her voice. Low. Satisfied. Speaking to someone on the phone. Victor. She told him it had arrived. Everything they needed. The documents. The report. Perfect. Exactly as promised. Now they just needed the payment. She'd handle it this afternoon. Discreetly. No trail. The call ended. Footsteps approached the door. I moved quickly. Down the hall. Into the bathroom. Closed the door partway. Watched through the crack. Lila emerged. Purse in hand. Car keys. She went downstairs. Called out that she was running errands. Would be back soon. The front door closed. The silver sedan started. Pulled away. I went to her room. The door was locked. But I knew where she kept the spare key. Under the ceramic dish on the hallway table. Frank had installed all the locks. Same key fit every door. I opened it. Stepped inside. The room smelled like her perfume. Expensive. Floral. Cloying. Her laptop sat on the desk. Closed. I didn't touch it. Too risky. But papers lay scattered. I photographed them. Page by page. Dr. Rowan's report. Official letterhead. Professional language. Detailed assessment of cognitive decline. Recommendation for immediate guardianship. My name. My life. Reduced to clinical lies. More papers underneath. Guardianship petition. Already drafted. Waiting for signatures. Court dates. Legal terminology. Lila had thought of everything. I photographed it all. Then put everything back. exactly as I'd found it. Left the room, locked the door, replaced the key. Back in my room, I transferred the photos to my laptop. Uploaded everything. Sent copies to Richard Chen, my lawyer. Subject line evidence. Timestamp 11:15. Friday morning, November 8th. Everything documented. Dated. Preserved. Lila returned at noon. 3 shopping bags. Designer labels. More of Daniel's money spent. She came upstairs, knocked on my door, asked if I wanted lunch. I said yes. Came down slowly, carefully, playing the part. She made soup, tomato, from a can, served it with crackers, sat across from me, watched me eat. After lunch, she said she had another errand. Important. Would I be all right alone? I said yes, of course. She left again, this time on foot, walking downtown. I watched from the window. She turned left on Coastal Road, heading toward Harbor Street, toward Dr. Rowan's office. The payment. I grabbed my coat, followed at a distance, stayed back, used storefronts for cover. She walked with purpose, confident, certain, turned onto Harbor Street, climbed the narrow stairs beside Green's Pharmacy, disappeared into Dr. Rowan's office. I waited across the street, inside the coffee shop, ordered tea, sat by the window. 20 minutes passed. Lila emerged, no package visible, but her purse hung differently. Lighter, emptier. She walked back the way she'd come. Relaxed. Mission accomplished. I waited 5 more minutes. Finished my tea, then crossed the street. I climbed the stairs. The office door was unlocked. The receptionist looked up. Same blonde girl. She smiled, asked if I had an appointment. I said no, but I'd left my scarf earlier this week. Had anyone found it? She said she didn't think so, but she'd check. She left her desk, went to the back room. I moved quickly. Her computer screen was visible. Open to the calendar. Dr. Rowan's schedule. Today's appointments listed, but there, at 2 o'clock, a note. L. Hayes. Payment received. No appointment needed. I photographed the screen. Put my phone away. The receptionist returned. No scarf. Sorry. I thanked her. Left. Outside, the air felt colder. Wind coming off the ocean. November settling in. I walked home slowly. The pieces fitting together. Dr. Rowan's report. The guardianship petition. The payment. All connected. All documented. All recorded. That evening, Daniel came home. Nearly midnight. His shift had been brutal. 3 emergencies. 1 didn't make it. He looked broken. Lila met him at the door. Wrapped her arms around him. Guided him to the couch. Made him tea. Rubbed his shoulders. Played the devoted wife. I watched from the doorway. She hadn't seen me. Daniel sat with eyes closed. Exhausted. Trusting. Lila whispered in his ear. Things about me. About my decline. About difficult decisions coming. He nodded. Too tired to question. Too grateful for her presence. I retreated upstairs. Sat at my desk. Opened my laptop. Reviewed everything. The recordings. The photographs. The timeline. Week by week. Lila's plan laid bare. Her calls with Victor. Her arrangement with Dr. Rowan. The payment. The petition. Every piece clear. Undeniable. But timing mattered. Too soon and she'd cover her tracks. Too late and Daniel might sign something. I needed the perfect moment. When her confidence peaked. When she thought victory was certain. The weekend passed quietly. Saturday, Lila made breakfast. Pancakes. Bacon. Playing house. She asked about my week. I said it was fine. Quiet. She mentioned Dr. Rowan's report. How helpful it was. How it gave them guidance. I nodded, smiled vaguely. Sunday, Daniel had the day off. He slept until noon. Came downstairs looking rested. Lila made lunch. We ate together. Almost normal. But underneath, tension thrummed. Lila asked Daniel about guardianship. Casually. Mentioned she'd looked into it. Just research. He said they'd talk about it later. She agreed. Patient. That afternoon, I pulled out Frank's journal. The one I'd been filling. Dates. Events. Evidence. I wrote down Friday. The envelope. The payment. Dr. Rowan's appointment note. Everything connected. The journal was my backup. Physical proof. Truth that couldn't be deleted. Evening came. Darkness fell early now. The house grew cold. Daniel built a fire. We sat in the living room. Watching flames. Not talking. Lila scrolled her phone. Planning something. Always planning. Daniel stared at nothing. I watched them both. My son. His wife. The distance growing. That night, I couldn't sleep. Lay in bed listening. Footsteps below. Lila. Moving through the house. I got up. Cracked my door. Watched her shadow. She went to the study. Light spilled into the hallway. Papers shuffling. Drawers opening. I crept to the stairs. Stayed in shadow. Her voice. Whispering into her phone. Victor again. She told him everything was ready. Dr. Rowan's report. The payment made. Clean. Untraceable. Now they just needed Daniel's signature. One document. Then the house was theirs. Victor told her to push harder. Create more incidents. She agreed. This week. The call ended. Lila turned off the light. Went upstairs. Passed within feet of me. But she didn't see. Too focused on victory. I waited until her door closed. Then returned to my room. Sat in darkness. The recorder in my hand. Her confession captured. Clear. Perfect. Monday would be different. The air was changing. Pressure building. Storm approaching. I was ready. Every piece in place. Let her make her move. The trap waited. Patient. Inevitable. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. Monday morning brought rain. Cold. Relentless. The kind that soaked through everything. Daniel left early for his shift. 6 in the morning. Still dark outside. His footsteps heavy on the stairs. The front door closing. Engine starting. Tail lights disappearing into the storm. Lila slept late. Didn't come down until 10. She wore her silk robe. Hair perfect despite just waking. Makeup already done. She made coffee. Strong. Black. Sat at the kitchen table. Scrolling through her phone. Planning something. I could see it in her eyes. That calculating look. Sharp. Focused. I made toast. Burned it slightly. On purpose. Let the smoke drift. The alarm beeped. Loud. Piercing. Lila jumped up. Rushed over. Waved a towel at the detector. The beeping stopped. She looked at me. Concern painted on her face. Asked if I was all right. I said yes. Just distracted. She took the burnt toast. Threw it away. Made fresh. Watched me the entire time. After breakfast, she went upstairs. Made a phone call. The microphone caught everything. Victor. She told him about the toast. Another incident. More evidence. They were close now. Very close. Just needed one more push. Daniel was exhausted. Vulnerable. She'd present the guardianship papers this week. Maybe tonight. Strike while he was weak. Victor agreed. Told her not to wait. Not to hesitate. The call ended. Footsteps crossed the floor. Water running. Shower starting. I went to the study. Pulled out my laptop. Checked the cloud storage. Everything was there. Backed up. Safe. Recordings. Photographs. Timeline. Evidence spanning 3 weeks. From the baby monitor to yesterday's payment. All connected. All damning. My phone buzzed. Text from Richard Chen, my lawyer. He'd reviewed everything I'd sent. Called it airtight. Conspiracy. Fraud. Elder abuse. Asked when I wanted to act. I typed back. Soon. Very soon. He said he'd be ready. Court order prepared. Just needed my word. Rain hammered the windows. The house felt smaller. Darker. Closing in. But my mind stayed clear. Sharp. I'd spent 3 weeks gathering proof. Building a case. Now the moment approached. The final act. Everything had to be perfect. Timing. Execution. No mistakes. Lila came downstairs at noon. Dressed now. Jeans. Cashmere sweater. Expensive boots. She said she was going out. Meeting a friend. Lunch downtown. Would I be okay alone? I said yes. Of course. She grabbed her purse. Her keys. The silver sedan pulled away. Gravel crunching. I waited 5 minutes. Then went to her room. The guardianship papers sat on her desk. No longer hidden. She was confident now. Careless. I photographed them again. New notes in the margins. Daniel's signature line highlighted. Yellow marker. Arrows pointing. Instructions. Tonight. Get him to sign tonight. My phone rang. Daniel. His voice was strained. Tired. Asked if I was home. I said yes. He said he was coming. Now. Middle of his shift. Something had happened. He needed to see something. I asked what. He said just wait. He'd explain. The call ended. 20 minutes later, his car pulled up. Fast. Urgent. He came through the door. His face was different. Not exhausted. Angry. He held papers. Crumpled. Wrinkled. Asked if I knew what these were. I looked. Bank statements. Credit card bills. All in his name. Charges he didn't recognize. Thousands of dollars. Tens of thousands. He'd gone to pay his hospital parking. His card declined. He'd called the bank. They'd read him the charges. Designer stores. Jewelry. Spa treatments. A leased car. All on his cards. All signed by Lila. He'd thought she was being careful. Frugal. She'd promised. But she'd been spending. Hiding it. Lying. His hands shook. He asked if I'd noticed. I said yes. Shopping bags. New clothes. Expensive things. He sat down. Put his head in his hands. Said he'd been blind. Stupid. Working so hard. Missing everything. I sat beside him. Put my hand on his shoulder. Said it wasn't his fault. Love made people blind. He looked up. Asked what I meant. I went upstairs. Came back with my laptop. Sat beside him. Opened the files. Started with the baby monitor. That first conversation. Lila's voice. Cold. Calculating. The house is practically mine already. The old woman won't even know what hit her. Daniel's face went white. Pale. Shocked. I played more. The call with Victor. Planning. Scheming. Dr. Rowan's arrangement. The fake assessment. The payment. Each recording worse than the last. Daniel listened. Silent. His jaw clenched. Hands gripping the chair arms. White knuckles. Rage building. Carefully controlled. Then I showed him the photographs. Dr. Rowan's report. The lies. The fabricated decline. The guardianship petition. Lila's notes. Tonight. Get him to sign tonight. Everything laid bare. Crystal clear. Undeniable. He stared at the screen. Not speaking. Barely breathing. Finally, he asked how long. How long had I known? I said 3 weeks. Since the baby monitor. He asked why I didn't tell him. I said he wouldn't have believed me. He was too tired, too trusting, too in love. I needed proof, evidence, truth he couldn't deny. He nodded slowly, asked what I'd done. I showed him everything, the microphones, the recordings, the lawyer, the backup files, the safety deposit box. Every step documented, every piece preserved, legal, admissible, perfect. He looked at me differently. Not as his declining mother. As someone strong, someone capable, someone who'd protected them. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. Daniel sat at the kitchen table for an hour. Silent, staring at nothing. Rain continued outside. Steady, relentless. The clock ticked, loud in the quiet. Finally, he looked up. His eyes were different, clear, hardened. He asked what happened next. I told him we waited. Let Lila come home. Let her think everything was normal. Tonight, she'd try to get his signature. We'd be ready. He nodded, asked what I needed from him. I said trust, patience. Let me handle it. He started to protest, then stopped. Realized I'd been handling it. For weeks. While he'd been blind, he agreed. Said he'd follow my lead. For the first time in months, we were a team. He went back to the hospital. Had to finish his shift. But his phone stayed on. Ready, waiting for my call. I watched him drive away. The taillights fading in the rain. Then I prepared. Checked the recorders. Fresh batteries. Tested the microphones. Everything working. Perfect. Tonight would be recorded. Every word. Every moment. The final evidence. Lila returned at 3. Shopping bags in hand. More purchases. Daniel's money spent carelessly. She was humming. That same pop song. Happy. Confident. Victory so close she could taste it. She called out hello. Asked if I'd had lunch. I said yes. Soup. She nodded. Went upstairs. The shower started. She was preparing. Getting ready. Tonight was important. At 5, she came down. Makeup perfect. Hair styled. She wore a dress. Navy blue. Elegant. Professional. She said Daniel would be home soon. She'd made reservations. A nice restaurant. To celebrate. I asked what we were celebrating. She said just being family. Being together. Her smile was warm. Practiced. Poison wrapped in silk. Daniel arrived at 6. He'd texted me first. Said he was ready. I texted back. Stay calm. Follow my lead. He came through the door. Lila greeted him. Kissed his cheek. Said she'd made plans. Something special. He said he was tired. Maybe another night. She insisted. They needed this. Quality time. He agreed. Reluctantly. Playing his part perfectly. But Lila sensed something. Her eyes narrowed slightly. She asked if everything was okay. He said yes. Just a long shift. She studied him. Searching. Then relaxed. Satisfied. She said dinner was in an hour. She'd made his favorite. Pot roast. Vegetables. Homemade rolls. All the effort. All the manipulation. The Last Supper. They went upstairs to change. I stayed in the kitchen. Set the table. 3 places. Good china. Frank's mother's dishes. Crystal glasses. Everything perfect. Ceremony required ritual. This ending needed proper staging. The recorders hummed. Hidden. Waiting. Capturing everything. Dinner started at 7. Lila served. Smiling. Gracious. Playing hostess. The food was good. She'd actually cooked. Put in effort. Making this memorable. She talked about the house. Improvements she wanted. Fresh paint. New furniture. Opening up spaces. Daniel nodded. Said little. I ate slowly. Watched them both. The tension building. Invisible. Electric. After dinner, Lila cleared the dishes. Made coffee. Brought out dessert. Apple pie. Warm. Cinnamon smell filling the kitchen. She was stalling. Building to something. Finally, she sat down. Took Daniel's hand. Said they needed to talk. About me. About the future. About difficult decisions. Daniel's face stayed neutral. He asked what decisions. Lila explained gently. Dr. Rowan's assessment. My decline. Memory problems. Safety concerns. They needed to protect me. Make sure I was cared for. Guardianship was the answer. Legal protection. For everyone. She'd already done the research. Prepared the papers. Just needed his signature. She pulled out the documents. Set them on the table. Between the coffee cups and dessert plates. Official forms. Legal language. Daniel's signature line highlighted. Yellow marker bright against white paper. She handed him a pen. Her favorite. Gold. Expensive. Said it would only take a minute. Then everything would be settled. Safe. Secure. Daniel took the pen. Held it. Looked at the papers. Lila's smile widened. Victory so close. She started talking about next steps. Selling the house. Moving somewhere smaller. Better. More manageable. Somewhere they could all be comfortable. The money would help. Pay off debts. Start fresh. New beginning. Daniel set down the pen. Said he had questions. About the assessment. About Dr. Rowan. About the incidents she'd mentioned. Lila's smile faltered. Just slightly. She said what questions. Everything was in the report. Very thorough. Very professional. He asked when she'd paid Dr. Rowan. Her face went pale. Just a flicker. Then recovered. Said she hadn't. Why would she? Daniel pulled out his phone. Showed her the photograph. Dr. Rowan's calendar. L. Hayes. Payment received. Her face drained white. Completely. She started to speak. Stopped. Started again. Said it must be a mistake. A misunderstanding. Her voice shook. Confidence cracking. Crumbling. Then I spoke. Quiet. Calm. Said there was no mistake. I'd been there. Seen her go in. Watched her leave. Lighter. Emptier. Mission accomplished. Lila turned to me. Her expression shifted. Shock. Confusion. Rage. The mask slipping. Breaking. She asked what I was talking about. How did I know? I said I'd been watching. Listening. Recording. Everything. For weeks. Daniel stood. Walked to the sideboard. Opened the drawer. Pulled out a folder. My evidence. Printed. Organized. Chronological. He set it on the table. Pushed it toward Lila. Told her to read. She opened it. Her hands shaking. Pages of transcripts. Photographs. Bank records. Timeline. Her face went from white to red. Anger building. Desperation rising. She tried to explain. Said it wasn't what it looked like. She'd been trying to help. Protect the family. Protect me. But Daniel cut her off. Said he'd heard the recordings. Every conversation. Every plan. Every lie. Her voice with Victor. Cold. Calculating. The old woman won't even know what hit her. Those were her words. Her plan. Her betrayal. Lila's eyes darted. Looking for escape. For explanation. She turned to me. Said I'd misunderstood. Taken things out of context. I was confused. Declining. That's what this proved. I smiled. Cold. Sharp. Said Dr. Rowan might disagree. Since his report was fabricated. Paid for. Criminal fraud. Medical malpractice. Elder abuse. Legal terms. Heavy. Final. She stood abruptly. Chair scraping. Said she didn't have to listen to this. These accusations. This insanity. She'd call her lawyer. Daniel said she'd need one. Because he'd already called his. Richard Chen. Who had everything. Every recording. Every photograph. Every piece of evidence. Filed. Documented. Ready for court. Lila's face twisted. Rage. Fear. Desperation. She said Daniel was making a mistake. Choosing his senile mother over his wife. Over their future. He said he was choosing truth. Over lies. Over betrayal. Over someone who'd tried to steal his mother's home. His inheritance. His family. She grabbed her purse. Said fine. She'd leave. But she'd be back. With lawyers. With Dr. Rowan. They'd prove I was incompetent. Dangerous. Daniel pulled out another paper. Court order. Signed that afternoon. Judge Morrison. Barring Lila from the property. Restraining order. Effective immediately. She was trespassing. She needed to leave. Now. Lila stared at the paper. Reading. Rereading. Her hands shook. The document trembled. Finally, she looked up. At Daniel. At me. Her expression pure hatred. She said this wasn't over. We'd regret this. She'd make sure. Threats spilling out. Desperate. Powerless. Daniel walked to the door. Opened it. Rain poured in. Cold. Dark. He told her to go. Now. Before he called the police. She grabbed her coat. Her keys. Walked to the door. Stopped. Turned back. One last look. At the house. At the life she'd almost stolen. Then she left. The door closed. The silver sedan started. Headlights swept across the windows. Then disappeared. Taillights fading. Gone. Silence settled. Heavy. Complete. Daniel stood at the door. Not moving. I went to him. Put my hand on his arm. He turned. His eyes were wet. Not quite crying. But close. He said he was sorry. So sorry. For being blind. For not seeing. For almost losing everything. I told him it was over. We were safe. The house was safe. He nodded. Then pulled me into a hug. Tight. Desperate. His son again. My boy. Not her husband. Not her victim. Just Daniel. Home. Finally home. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. The house felt different after Lila left. Lighter. Cleaner. Like a fever breaking. Daniel and I stood in the hallway. Rain still falling outside. Neither of us speaking. Just breathing. Feeling the weight lift. The pressure release. Finally, he went upstairs. Said he needed to think. To process. I heard his bedroom door close. Soft. Careful. I stayed downstairs. Walked through the rooms. Kitchen. Living room. Study. Each space had been hers. Touched by her presence. Her choices. Her poison. White blinds covered the windows. Stark. Cold. The walls were bare. Photos gone. Frank's chair missing. My curtains replaced. Everything erased. But not permanently. Not irreversibly. The next morning came gray. Tuesday, November 10th. Daniel slept late. Exhausted. Emotionally drained. I made coffee. Strong. The smell filled the kitchen. Familiar. Comforting. I sat at the table. Made a list. Things to restore. Things to reclaim. Room by room. Memory by memory. Daniel came down at 9. His eyes were red. Swollen. He'd been crying. Processing. Grieving. Not for Lila. For the illusion. The life he'd thought he had. The trust broken. He poured coffee. Sat across from me. Asked what happened now. I showed him the list. He read it. Nodded slowly. Then asked where we started. We started with the curtains. The white blinds came down first. Easy. Satisfying. Plastic snapping. Brackets unscrewing. Sunlight poured in. Real light. Warm. Yellow. Not filtered through sterile white. The cream linen curtains were in the attic. Boxed. Labeled. Everything Lila had removed. Everything she'd tried to erase. We brought them down. Shook out the dust. Hung them carefully. The living room transformed. Softened. Became home again. Daniel stood back. Looking. His expression shifted. Relief. Recognition. This was the house he'd grown up in. Not Lila's showroom. Not her sterile vision. Home. He asked about Frank's chair. I said the donation center. Goodwill on Maple Street. He grabbed his keys. Said he'd check. Maybe it was still there. While he was gone, I worked on the photographs. They were boxed in the spare room. Lila's room. Soon to be my sewing room again. I carried them downstairs. One box at a time. Heavy. Full of memories. Wedding photos. Baby pictures. Frank at the beach. Daniel's graduations. Life documented. Preserved. I wiped the frames. Cleaned the glass. Started hanging them. Daniel returned 2 hours later. Empty-handed. Discouraged. The chair was gone. Sold probably. Lost. I said it was okay. We'd find another. He said it wouldn't be the same. I agreed. But nothing would be. We were different now. Older. Wiser. Scarred. But still standing. Still together. That afternoon, Richard Chen called. My lawyer. He'd filed the evidence with the district attorney. They were reviewing. Considering charges. Fraud. Conspiracy. Elder abuse. Dr. Rowan was under investigation. His license suspended. Pending review. Lila had disappeared. Left town. Her phone disconnected. But they'd find her. Eventually. Justice took time. But it came. Daniel listened to the update. His face stayed neutral. Hard. He said he wanted divorce papers filed. Immediately. Richard said he'd handle it. Fraud invalidated the marriage. Made it voidable. Daniel could get an annulment. Clean break. Fresh start. Daniel agreed. Said make it happen. Fast. The week passed slowly. Wednesday. Thursday. Friday. Each day we worked. Removing Lila's changes. Restoring what was ours. The sage green paint in the guest room. Covered. 2 coats of cream. My sewing machine returned to the corner. Fabric organized. Patterns filed. Space reclaimed. The kitchen got new dish towels. Blue. With yellow flowers. Like the old ones. Lila's minimalist white went in the trash. Daniel cooked dinner each night. Simple meals. Pasta. Chicken. Vegetables. We ate together. Talked. Really talked. Not about Lila. About life. Work. Memories. Frank. The past we'd almost lost. Saturday morning, Mrs. Chen stopped by. Brought soup. Homemade. She'd heard through Richard. Small towns. Everyone knew everything. She hugged me. Said she'd been worried. Noticed things. Lila's spending. Her coldness. The way she looked at the house. Like property. Like profit. Mrs. Chen had wanted to say something. But hadn't known how. I thanked her. Said it was over now. She nodded. Then mentioned something. Old Murphy. At the hardware store. He'd bought something at an estate sale. Months ago. A green chair. Corduroy. He'd put it in his office. Couldn't bear to see it go. reminded him of his father. But if we wanted it back, if it was Frank's, he'd understand. Daniel drove to the hardware store. Came back an hour later. The chair in his truck bed. Wrapped in plastic. Protected. We carried it inside together. Set it by the fireplace. Same spot. Same angle. The fabric was worn. Faded. But it was Frank's. It was home. Daniel sat in it. Testing. His eyes closed. Remembering. When he opened them, they were wet. Sunday, we rested. The house was almost restored. Photos on the walls. Curtains at the windows. Familiar objects returned. But something was missing. Energy. Life. The house felt like a museum. Beautiful. But static. Daniel noticed too. Said it felt empty. Too quiet. I agreed. We needed something. Someone. To fill the space. Monday brought mail. A package. Small. From the county courthouse. Divorce papers. Filed. Served. Lila had signed. No contest. She wanted it over. Fast. Probably hoping to avoid criminal charges. Too late for that. But the marriage was ended. Dissolved. Daniel read the papers. Set them down. Said it felt surreal. 6 months. That's all it had been. 6 months of lies. Of manipulation. Of near destruction. That evening, we built a fire. First one since Lila left. The wood crackled. Warmth filled the room. Orange light danced on the walls. We sat together. Daniel in Frank's chair. Me on the couch. The house settled around us. Creaking. Breathing. Content. Daniel asked if I was okay. Really okay. After everything. I said yes. Tired. But okay. Stronger than before. He asked how. How had I stayed calm? Stayed focused. Through all of it. I told him Frank. His training. His patience. His belief that evidence beat emotion. That truth beat lies. Always. Daniel nodded. Said he wished he'd known Frank better. As an adult. Man to man. I said Frank knew him. Was proud. Always. Even now. Especially now. Daniel had chosen truth. Over comfort. Over love. Over the easy lie. That took courage. Frank would have respected that. Daniel smiled. Sad. Grateful. Then asked what came next. For me. For us. For the house. I said living. Actually living. Not just surviving. Not just defending. The house was ours. Safe. Protected. Now we filled it. With life. With purpose. With joy. Daniel asked how. I said time. Patience. Healing. Same way we'd rebuilt after Frank. Same way we'd survived Lila. One day. One moment. One choice at a time. The fire burned low. Embers glowing. Daniel added wood. The flames caught. Grew. Light filled the room again. Outside, the ocean roared. Waves crashing. Endless. Eternal. The house stood firm. Foundation solid. Walls strong. Windows clear. This was victory. Not revenge. Not destruction. Just peace. The quiet power of refusing to be erased. Tuesday morning, I woke early. Sunrise painted the ocean pink. Gold. Beautiful. I made coffee. Sat at the kitchen table. The house quiet around me. But not empty. Not anymore. Daniel slept upstairs. My son. Safe. Home. The deed sat in the drawer. My name. Margaret Elizabeth Hayes. Still mine. Still secure. I thought about the past month. The fear. The planning. The recording. The waiting. It had been war. Quiet. Invisible. But war nonetheless. And I'd won. Not through violence. Not through destruction. Through patience. Through evidence. through refusing to be diminished. That was power. Real power. The kind that lasted. Footsteps on the stairs. Daniel. He came into the kitchen. Poured coffee. Sat beside me. We watched the sunrise together. Not speaking. Just being. Present. Alive. Together. The light grew stronger. Brighter. A new day. A new beginning. The house had survived. We had survived. That was enough. More than enough. That was everything.